Are you ready to make more money with your heart? Whether you're just starting out on your entrepreneurial journey or scaling an established business, you're in the right place. This is the Meaningful Money Making Podcast on the Incomeify Network, where successful entrepreneurs share their best strategies for achievement. So sit back, secure your earbuds, and let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Meaningful Money Making Podcast. This is your host, Stacey Smith, and today I have a very special guest, Nick Loper. And Nick is the founder of Side Hustle Nation. It's a podcast, it's a blog, and he is the author of several books. The one that I came into contact with was the Side Hustle Path, 10 Proven Ways to Make Money Outside Your Day Job. And, yes, it is on my Kindle, and his podcast is something I listened to when I was in corporate America. So I am really, really excited that he is on the show today. Welcome, Nick.
Well, Stacey, thank you so much for having me. That book is free on Amazon if anyone wants to go check it out. And I don't know what part I played in your corporate exit, but I'm happy that you made the leap. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yes, and so check that out on Amazon for free right now. The Side Hustle Path. So tell me a bit, Nick, about what inspired you to do what you're doing right now. You have over 30,000 peeps in your community who are learning from you, getting, straight, no chaser advice on your blog and in your podcast. What kind of led you to where you are right now? If you want to go into where you were, before making the leap, you can do that too.
Sure. So my original side hustle was this footwear comparison shopping business. Like back in the day, comparison shopping was probably a much bigger deal than it is now. I think now everyone just goes to Amazon to do their product searches.
Right.
I had this.
You were ahead of your time.
I guess. I don't know. I was like my own worst customer. I probably bought like 3 pairs over the course of 10 years. But I had this business, and I started that on the side, of course, and, even 3 years later, got up the nerve to quit my day job and do that full time. Since then, the entrepreneurial roller coaster has been filled with a lot of ups and downs. And, I've started a lot of projects that have failed on the side of the shoe business now side hustles on the side hustles. And a couple of the projects that had success, one of the ones that had success was Side Hustle Nation. And it kind of came actually during a low point in the shoe business, was like, is this thing going to last? Like when I quit my job, I naively thought like this is going to be this could be my thing. Like I could just do this forever. And like any business, it had kind of a finite lifespan to it. And as the thing was declining, some other businesses were doing okay. I was thinking, it's a lot of soul searching. Like what do I want to be known for when people Google me? Like what can I? What is my unique overarching life experience up to this point? Like, I'm really excited about, like, the idea of helping people earn money outside of their day job. Like, hey, it's a lower risk brand of entrepreneurship. And that's kind of where Side Hustle Nation got to start in kind of like spring of 2013.
Cool. And so you have the credibility because you actually started a business on the side, shoe reviews, and you were able to actually use that to fund your leap from corporate America. So you definitely have, some ability to help people make that leap. You definitely were an inspiration to me. So pretty cool. Now, what were some challenges that you faced when you got started? Did you have to, kind of build your site from scratch? Did you have to hire, people to help you with that? What was kind of some challenges and maybe your biggest hurdle that you had to overcome after you made the leap or even before?
There are challenges every step of the way, and kind of like the analogy that I keep using is like Matt Damon in The Martian, where it's like I'm gonna solve one problem at a time, I'm gonna go on to the next problem, go on to the next problem. For me, like I didn't know how to code a website, so that was one of the biggest hurdles. I had this idea and had actually done some kind of very inexpensive validation of it using Google text ads to say, hey, are people going to be willing to buy shoes online? Yes, which was kind of a surprising answer in 2004, 2005. But
yeah.
So I had to get somebody to build the website for me. So that was kind of an expensive decision. But the way I looked at it was kind of like in Good to Great speak by Jim Collins. He talks about firing bullets before firing cannonballs. And so the little text ads were my bullets to kind of calibrate this thing, and then making the big investment in having the website built was the cannonball. Like, I'm going all in on this. Let's see what happens. There's been just a nonstop barrage of hurdles and challenges since then. Like on my first day of self-employment, my first day of being a full-time entrepreneur, Google comes down and they said, hey, anymore. It doesn't meet our quality guidelines. Like, are you kidding me? What happened? Like, you had no problem with this?
Your ads?
Yeah, like, I just turned in the keys to my company car. What are you talking about? And it took 3 months, basically, to kind of get back on their good side. And, we made updates to the website. They didn't really tell you what they're looking for. Eventually, they came back and said, it looks like we made an error. You're good to go now. I was like, are you kidding me? But, that's what it's been like. It's a very
trial by error.
Yeah, it's a very stressful thing to try and cut your own paycheck every month and figure out where that, and realizing, okay, nobody else is gonna, I'm trying to come up with a subtitle for my new book, and I've asked people for help, and the jury is kind of split on this. It's and I keep waiting for this epiphany moment. Nobody's gonna help you do that. That's the grass is always greener on, being an entrepreneur, right? It's there's some benefits. Somebody else could help you prioritize, somebody else could tell you what to do. Now you're kind of on your own, and it's a more stressful thing.
Yeah, kind of building, and I call it kind of building the plane as you fly it, where, if you're listening and you're in, maybe a job you don't like, you're like Nick, you have an idea of something that you want to do, but you don't feel like you have the ability to maybe implement it, to build the site or whatever. And now we've come a long way where you can build the site. Before pre-2005, you kind of had to hire someone to do that. So definitely, what advice would you give someone who maybe, kind of they listen to your challenge and your the hurdles that you had to overcome and what we go through as entrepreneurs on a day-to-day? What quick advice could you tell somebody about, hanging in there?
It's just that solving that one problem at a time is easy to get bogged down in the big picture. Somebody posted in the Side Hustle Nation Facebook group last week, I'm having a problem with Pinterest. And I was like, okay, what's your problem with Pinterest? The whole thing, I just don't, okay, that's not a problem. You got to break this down into maybe there's, 20 mini problems that you don't understand, or what is the first next action step that has to happen. And same thing with the book title as another example. It's you can consult your mastermind group, you consult your peers, you can ask people what their opinion is, but ultimately you got to make a decision, you got to pick something, you got to run with it before you can get your cover design and move on to the next, all these things that all the dominoes that have to fall, and you kind of just cross one thing off at a time.
Yeah, so don't get overwhelmed. Do one thing at a time and get kind of clarity on what it is, you need to solve next and prioritize that. And we'll talk about your book. I want to know about that so that I can get ready to get that copy. So what is the best part about, working for yourself and having your own business?
Well, the biggest advantages for me are the time freedom to not have to ask anybody for vacation, to take off in the middle of the week and go skiing. The bigger problem that I have is trying to recruit friends to come with me. They're like, dude, I got to work. And that's the bigger challenge right now. The best part, I love doing the podcast. It is something that started as an experiment and has really morphed into something that has taken on a life of its own. The connections made through there, and even through the blog to a lesser extent, but on the podcast especially, because people spend half an hour, 45 minutes with you in their earbuds, and they do it week after week after week, and it's building up a really powerful relationship. And it's something that I for the first few years, especially of the shoe business, I was kind of on an island, I was just hiding in my cave, doing my work all alone, not talking to anybody. And I think the best part of the work I do today is the opportunity to really hear what other people are working on and see what's working out there in the entrepreneurial world.
Cool. Freedom is awesome. So thank you for sharing that. And in terms of, you mentioned earlier that, what you're doing now is kind of just like an experiment. You kind of have to validate your ideas like you did with the shoe review business and doing test ads with AdWords, et cetera. What would you say, maybe more clearly than I can, about how people can go about finding out what they want to do online outside of their day job? And they can get your book, too. I mean, it has a lot of information in there in terms of, examples of people who have actually done it and resources. There's a resource that you mentioned in there, Screencast-O-Matic, that I signed up for. It's $15 a year, so get a copy of his book. You will definitely, learn a lot. But tell us, Nick, what would you say people can do to find their passion and just start with something?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to take issue with the, passion, language and stuff. Like, I think it could be kind of a dangerous thing. Like, my friend is a good example. It's like, sometimes I believe God put me on this earth to play second base. And like, hey, dude, you're 34. Like, your days of professional baseball are long behind you. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Oh,
like, okay,
wow.
What else can you do? What else can you do around, that if you're interested in baseball, like if there's like, a shoulder, industry or something you could get into. I don't know. I think, I just saw an article today, actually. It was like, oftentimes passion comes from the work rather than, the work coming from the passion. It's like trying to find something that you enjoy doing, right? Like, the last thing you, especially as a side hustler, the last thing you need is a second job that you hate. But
right.
I don't know, like I'm hesitant to go down like the full like passion route. But trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? What kind of service can I offer? I think that's one of probably the fastest ways to get started. I typically will look at kind of your like resume of skills or even your resume of past jobs, because that's like by definition, if somebody paid you for a job, that was some skill that somebody thought was worth paying for, and then try and cross-reference that with your list of interests, hobbies, maybe outside of work areas of expertise. So, like, I have been doing some freelance book editing or like nonfiction book editing, and I said, hey, I've published several nonfiction books myself. I was a decent English student in school. Like, I understand some basic grammar rules. Like, I think I could combine those two and start a freelancing service. And I, have done, probably actually did 20, 25 books over the past couple years and read some really interesting, work and some really not so interesting work, but it was kind of, one of those.
But you have a love of reading too, so you're able to kind of marry those.
It was kind of a fun one.
Nice. So you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So you're saying that you can marry what you're passionate about. Just don't pursue basket weaving, and quit your job based on basket weaving, but to kind of do an inventory of what you've already done and what people will pay you for.
Yeah, there's got to be a business angle there somewhere. And even if it's not immediately apparent down the road, you could see, what are other people doing in this space? If other people in this space have been doing it for, 5 years, 10 years, like there's probably, they must be making a living at it somehow. Or they're funding from some other source. But it's like, that's a good sign. If there's advertisers in the space, that's a good sign. If you don't see any of that, like, oh, no one else has ever done anything like this, like, that could be great in like the blue ocean strategy sense of it, but it's also a lot riskier because no one else has validated it for you.
Right. Cool. Good stuff. And I believe it was, I can't remember who said this, but they said to don't follow, if you don't know what your passion is, follow your curiosity. So maybe start with what you're curious about and go down that rabbit hole and kind of see what that opens up for you. Cool. Awesome. And you mentioned Blue Ocean Strategy. So I saw that on a Facebook group recently, too. I haven't read it yet, but interesting. And that's kind of like
I haven't read it either.
Yeah, I think it's about kind of you're creating your own category, maybe, and you don't want to kind of go, out there on a dinghy and you don't have anyone, an audience necessarily unless you have, the money to do, 15, 20 grand in Facebook ads a month or whatever. So maybe the Blue Ocean thing, like you're saying, is not necessarily what you want to start off with, starting out the gate. So interesting. So Nick, aside from business, what do you enjoy doing? What do you do to kind of separate yourself from work? I know you're super busy and, you may have to sometimes pull yourself away and force yourself to take a break. How do you kind of unwind or, take a break from your business?
Well, we talked about skiing. That's a big passion of mine. I can play like rec softball and stuff. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge to disconnect because it's, it's a 24/7 business and it's something that's always on my mind. I feel like trying to be a little bit better. We've got a 7-month-old at home now, so trying to be like, okay, I'm not going to be on my phone when I'm like in front of the kid. Try and shut down the computer and spend some time with him. But it is a challenge to try and separate, work and life because it's all, it is. And a lot of the work that I do doesn't feel like work because it's a ton of fun. Yeah, that's what's going on in our life right now. Trying to not scar this kid for life every day.
Wow, so you're super busy. I didn't know you were a new parent. Well, actually, I did see the baby photograph on your About page. So, wow, 7 months. How cool is that? That is really cool. Congrats. So you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, personally and professionally.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's so much better now. The first couple of months were horrible, but it's much better now.
In terms of getting sleep and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was rough.
Wow, well, cool. We're glad you made it through. What is your favorite quote? What is something that maybe inspires you, that you can share with people? If you can think of one offhand, something that inspires or strengthens you, keeps you going.
A favorite quote? Oh, man, there's so many. One that comes to mind is perfection is the enemy of good enough. And I don't know who says that. It's kind of like, something that my dad has tried to instill in us, in my brother and I. You can keep working on this one thing, and trying to make it perfect, or you can just ship it, get it out the door. Even if it's not perfect, it's probably good enough. And then you can move on to the next thing. Or you can get some feedback and improve and iterate on it from there. So there are a lot of areas of life and business we're trying to, take perfection is the enemy of good enough into account.
I like that. And that's probably a lot of people listening right now are maybe allowing perfection to keep them, being stuck and to keep them kind of in a procrastination mode, and that's not helpful if you're in a state of inertia because you don't feel you have the tools, resources, or connections to do something. You kind of have to start where you are. So that's perfect, to not let perfection keep you from doing something that's good enough. Just ship it, iterate, and kind of build the plane as you go along. Cool.
I don't know if the Wayback Machine would work, but you could go back and look at like the first version of this of the shoe website. It's called shoesniper.com. Actually, the original version was called shoesareus.net, and it's like a horribly ugly homepage. But you know what? It was out there in the world, and it was making sales.
Nice. So cool. So you guys check that out. Shoesniper.com, and you said Shoes Are Us.
Yeah, you'd have to go to like the Internet Archive or like the Wayback Machine to see what it might have looked like, in 2006.
See, so that gives us inspiration. You don't have to be perfect, and think that your site has to be beautiful to make money. You start where you are. So very, very inspiring. And speaking of kind of websites, what type of software or kind of productivity hacks do you love right now in terms of helping you to get your blog, your podcast done more quickly, more easily? What are you loving?
A couple tools that I am in love with are a text expander app. It's called Auto Text Expander, and it's for Chrome. And so it allows you to create your own keyboard shortcuts for commonly used phrases or text. And I feel like an absolute, productivity ninja when I use these things. So, a common thing people will email me about, hey, can we book a time, or would you like to come on my podcast? And stuff like, hey, I'm happy to join me. And
Yay.
So if I hit MC asterisk, it says it pops up my calendar. So MC for my calendar, and it goes, here's my calendar link. Grab some time. So I have email signature and all these different keyboard shortcuts. I really like that one. There's another one that I really like.
Wow. And what is that again? That one?
That is a Chrome extension called Auto Text Expander.
Auto Text Expander, okay.
And the other one is called Clip. Let me see. Okay, this is for Windows. I don't know. There's probably something similar for Mac. It's called ClipX, and it's a clipboard management. So it allows it keeps 25 of the last things that I copied and pasted in my clipboard. And I think the one for Mac is called Copy Clip. But this was a game changer for me because instead of flipping back and forth different tabs and copying and pasting a bunch of different things, okay, now you can just use this, and you can just Control Shift V, and it brings up the whole list, and you'd be okay, I want the fourth thing down, and I can paste that in. So a couple time savers that I use every day.
Cool. So ClipX and the page expander, nice. So in terms of if you could start all over pre-2005, you're still in your corporate, if there was anything that you would do differently, what would that be?
I think I would have started blogging and podcasting earlier. There's always the propensity to say, it's too crowded. Now it was crowded in 2013 when I started. It was crowded in 2009. It was crowded. It's only going to get more crowded. So it's a year from now, you're going to wish you started today. So I feel like if I had started a little bit earlier, I could have been farther ahead, especially with the podcast. I had started instead of 2013. What would even 6 months have looked like, or 12 months? Before that, what it looked like. So if you're sitting on the sidelines, a year from now, you're going to wish you had started today. And a friend of mine uses the analogy, this entrepreneurship game is almost like a game of chess, in that your first move doesn't really matter. You're trying to put your pawn out into the world and see what kind of reaction it gets. And, of course, you can adjust your game plan along the way. And, business today looks very different than it looked, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But it's, through that motion, through that action, that you kind of see other opportunities or new connections that pop up.
Nice. I really like that. To start today, to, don't, wait, because like you said, a year from now, you're going to wish you had started. So definitely good sage advice. So take it and run with it. After you listen to this episode, make sure you take some type of action. And the last question, Nick, is tell us what you are working on. You mentioned a book, and tell us about what that's all about.
You bet. I'm working on a new book called Buy Buttons, and I'm still debating on the subtitle. Basically what it's about is and I need to work on my elevator pitch for it too. It's about all these pre-existing marketplaces we can use to earn extra money, to start a business. And it's really been a common theme on the Side Hustle Show, people talking about leveraging Amazon, leveraging iTunes, leveraging Udemy, leveraging Airbnb and Uber, like all of these different platforms where there's already a big audience of buyers. Is really quick and really inexpensive for you to go and get in front of them. And so we're examining actually more than 300 of these different platforms in the book and sharing the case studies, the best practices, how to get started, and how to legitimately earn some extra money, earn some side income on these platforms, and then in some cases, how this can turn into a viable business, that either relies on that platform or better yet, is a standalone brand on your own.
Wow. So this is like the Side Hustle path on ultra steroids, like 300, you said resources or case studies?
Yes, definitely the most ambitious book project that I've tackled so far. I'm kind of going through the editor's notes and revisions this afternoon and trying to get it out before the end of the month. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to happen.
Wow.
But trying to hustle.
I was going to ask, how far along are you on the project? But it's already, on the final stages.
Yeah, it's coming. It's the home stretch. I'm kind of sick of looking at some of these pages and some of these stories, but I'm excited to get it out the door and see what kind of reaction it gets. So if you guys want to check it out, you can go to buybuttonsbook.com, and depending on when this is released, you can either sign up to get notified or you can grab a copy on Amazon.
Nice. Buy Buttons is the name of the book. You said buybuttonsbook.com is where you can, check it out, get pre-order perhaps. So sweet. And where can we find you? SideHustleNation.com. Do you have any, maybe memberships? Do you have anything that people can join? Do you have Facebook, or do you have, maybe a mastermind or anything that people can connect with you and maybe get some coaching?
I got nothing. It's you said it. SideHustleNation.com is the best spot. SideHustleNation.com/ideas will give you a laundry list of different part-time business ideas if you're still struggling in that idea stage.
Very nice. Wonderful. Thank you so very much for joining us. Any parting words that you have, any other sage advice that you have for people who maybe they're actually, like I was, on break at the job and taking my phone and listening to podcasts, or maybe someone's right now, they're at a job that they hate, maybe, feeling really desperate about what they can do. What advice would you give someone right now who just really needs an extra oomph of inspiration to take control of their destiny and their income?
Well, we covered a lot in the call. The main thing is to look at it as an experiment, right? It's most of this stuff, especially online business, it's not life-threatening. You may have to step out on a little bit of a limb to put yourself out there and stick your flag in the sand and say, hey, this is me, this is the business I'm trying to build, this is the service that I offer. But ultimately, like the worst case scenario is you can find another job, or even, if you're doing it on the side, like you still have your paycheck. Like you don't make a bet you can't afford to lose, but consider what your worst case outcome is, and it's probably not as bad as you're making it out to be in your head.
Cool. Awesome. Love it. Thank you again so much, Nick. I appreciate it. Again, visit him over at SideHustleNation.com. Get his new book coming out, Buy Buttons, and get a copy of the book that helped inspire me, The Side Hustle Path. And we appreciate you listening. I appreciate you, Nick, for chatting with me today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one. We'll be in touch.
All right. That's a wrap.